Street United Methodist Church in downtown Kinston, North Carolina. Welcome to our Wesley Bible class. Today we're going to go into chapter 31 of Deuteronomy, where a number of things are happening. Chapter 31 is kind of a setup for chapter 32, which is even worse. And but let's take a look at 31. First of all, Joshua becomes Moses' successor. When Moses had finished speaking all these words to Israel, he said to them, I am now 120 years old. I am no longer able to get about, and the Lord has told me, you shall not cross over this Jordan. The Lord your God himself will cross over before you. He will destroy these nations before you, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua also will cross over before you, as the Lord promised. The Lord will do to them as he did to Zion and Og, the kings of the Amorites, and to their land when he destroyed them. The Lord will give them over to you, and you shall deal with them in full accord with the command that I have given you. Be strong and bold, have no fear or dread of them, because it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. So what a wonderful way to start. God commissions them to commit genocide in the land in which they're going to. And just like they committed genocide on the other side of the Jordan. So you can imagine that this is a terror campaign. God has literally said that he would terrorize the people that they would come up against, and that would make them easier to fight. And you put this in a modern context, and it's really awful. You almost want to put God in front of the International Criminal Court, for some of the statements and actions that he's advocating. Today, genocide is generally thought to be not a good idea, although it's still practiced, and but it isn't something that the international community accepts. Somehow they tolerate a lot of it, but anyway. But here Moses is 120 years old. And he's having trouble getting about. Go figure.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Tough things, man. Tough things. So anyway, 120 years old, and God says, you ain't going across, pal. And we're going to put Joshua in your stead. It's kind of interesting because the Roman Catholic Church is now going through, the Pope died, and now they've got to have a convocation and elect a new Pope, which is an interesting process. It's called a Roman vote, oddly enough, and it's the same type of vote that we use in our annual conference when we elect delegates to General Conference, both lay and clergy. So basically it's I call it a vote of attrition. But somebody gets down the line and you drop them off and you start voting all over again for this, and you can put a new name on a new slate. By the way, this is the way that President Lincoln got nominated in his Republican convention. He did not run, and they could not decide between the two candidates that were running, and his name was put in at the convention, and he was elected because nobody could agree on the other two. So there you go. All right. Okay, so there are several things that Moses has to take care of before he kicks the bucket. So, verse 7, then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and bold, for you are the one who will go with this people into the land that the Lord has sworn to their ancestors to give them, and you will put them in possession of it. It is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Guess what? He's given Joshua the same words that the Lord just gave to Moses. Okay? Then Moses wrote down this law and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and all the elders of Israel. Moses commanded them every 7th year in the scheduled year of remission, during the festival of booths, when all Israel comes to appear before the Lord your God at the place that he will choose, you shall read this law before all Israel in their hearing. Assemble the people, men, women, children, as well as the aliens residing in your town, so that they may hear and learn to fear the Lord your God, and to observe diligently all the words of this law, and so that their children who have not known it may hear and learn to fear the Lord your God, as long as you live in the land that you are crossing over the Jordan to possess. All right. Couple of things that you need to know about why some of this stuff is in here. There are what I believe were addendums to the book of Deuteronomy after the people came back from the Babylonian and Persian captivity. And what was one of the first things that they did when they got back to the promised land from their captivity? One of the first things that happened while they were there. Oh, come on, I just read what they're supposed to do.
At a festival,
Well, yeah, but what were they doing at the festival?
when it was the 7-year festival, they were forgiving debt.
Oh, okay, no, this is just no, it wasn't the 7th year, it was the Festival of Booths. So, what's going on at the Festival of Booths? Why do they go into booths? Why do they leave their houses and go into a booth? They built these booths on the roofs, generally. No idea.
I don't.
What's their history?
Living in tents.
They lived in tents, right. So they have a festival to remind them of when they were in the Exodus, all right? And what are you supposed to do when you're celebrating the Exodus?
Live
I
in
just
tents
read
and
that.
booths.
What?
Live in tents and booths.
Okay, but what's going on here? I just read it.
Passover.
No, that's different, that's a different festival. What are they supposed to do when they have the Festival of Booths? I just read it.
You study the law.
Yeah.
Yeah, you read the law.
Yeah.
What Moses wrote down, okay? Every year, you read the law to everybody, okay? That's one of the first things they did when they got back from the Babylonian captivity. They read the law that Moses wrote down. Nobody could understand it because it wasn't written in Aramaic. So they had to bring translators who understood ancient Hebrew to read to the people who are now speaking Aramaic. And when they read it, were the people happy or sad when they read the law?
Probably sad,
They were. They were, but why would they be sad when they read the law?
because they weren't doing it.
Because they weren't doing it, okay? They had just come back from this horrendous punishment for having failed to obey the law. So when they read the law, it was a reminder of all the things that they had gotten wrong. Okay? You love chapter 31 and 32, I can tell already. All right. The Lord said to Moses, "Your time to die is near. Call Joshua and present yourself in the tent of meeting so that I may commission him." So Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tent of meeting. And the Lord appeared at the tent in a pillar of cloud. The pillar of cloud stood at the entrance of the tent. It's important to see this because it's a validation of Joshua's authority. Okay, so what's happened with Moses being present is also happening with Joshua being present, although Moses is still there. Okay. The Lord said to Moses, "Soon you will lie down with your ancestors. Then this people will begin to prostitute themselves to the foreign gods in the midst of the gods of the land into which they are going. They will forsake me, breaking my covenant that I have made with them. My anger will be kindled against them in that day. I will forsake them and hide my face from them. They will become easy prey, and many terrible things will come upon them. In that day they will say, 'Have not these troubles come upon us because our God is not in our midst?' On that day I will surely hide my face on account of all the evil that they have done by turning to other gods. Now therefore write this song." What a wonderful thing. "Write this song and teach it to the Israelites. Put it in their mouths in order that this song may be a witness for me against the Israelites. For when I have brought them into the land flowing with milk and honey, which I promised an oath to their ancestors, and they have eaten their fill and grown fat, they will turn to other gods and serve them, despising me and breaking my covenant. And when many terrible troubles come upon them, this song will confront them as a witness, because I will not be lost from the mouths of their descendants. For I know that they are inclined to do even now, before I have brought them into the land that I promised them on oath, That very day, Moses wrote this song and taught it to the Israelites. Then the Lord commissioned Joshua, son of Nun, be strong and bold, for you shall bring Israel into the land that I promised them. I will be with you. It's like God has no confidence in these people whatsoever. Okay? It's horrible. I mean, he's telling, and I look at one of the hardest things to do is to promote religion in a land of plenty. When people are desperate, they'll turn to the Lord, but when they're not desperate, they're going to go find other entertainments, and we do. And what we're finding is that as you go off finding other entertainments, some of them edifying and some of them not so much, that your society becomes weaker, that you begin to lose your moral fiber, that thing that unifies you and should sustain you is no longer a priority. And I think, this is me, but I think over the last, 50 years anyway, that our moral clarity has gone way into decline. And we've had, I know that previous generations have said the same thing about their time as well. But things are happening in our society exponentially. It is so much easier to find other things to do. It is so much easier to find ways of satisfying your prurient interests. It is so much easier to just do whatever you want. You can, if you want to know something, just Google it or something, and you find out about it. Now with AI, it's getting even more. And AI is transforming our society. And if you thought Google did, you ain't seen nothing yet. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's one of those issues of technology that has always confronted us, especially in the modern age, where our technology has gotten way ahead of our ability to manage the ethics surrounding it. And we have found that there are some real problems with the stuff that we've concocted for ourselves, that our kids are now susceptible to a new kind of addiction that we hadn't considered before. We were always worried that they would, when I was a kid, they'd start smoking, or they might take a drink too early. Now, God knows what they're watching on their phones, and or at least the Chinese know, and it's just way ahead of us. It's way ahead of us. And when AI comes in, it's going to be way, way, way ahead of us. And it's going. We have to find a way to ethically deal with the technologies that we're developing. And that's not just in terms of the internet and AI and that sort of thing. It's in terms of genetics and what we do, how we manipulate life. We've just gone through 4 years of an administration that wanted women to kill their children. It's just, where do you get that? It's just terrible. And we just because we can do things doesn't mean that they should be done. But we have the same problem. If you take a look at churches today, COVID hit us pretty hard, but society has hit us pretty hard too. And I have family members with children, and they don't go to church; they go play softball and other things. And these other activities encroach on what has traditionally been the time for church. But people don't see the value of church anymore because you can get whatever you want, whenever you want. So, it's interesting. We are going through a transformative time, and what God is really telling these people is that you're going to get fat, dumb, and happy in the land that you're going to, and you're going to get sloppy about your faith, and watch what happens as a result of that. Now, we get really down on God when we read this kind of thing because he is always threatening them, okay? And he's telling them that these calamities are going to befall them because they have gone away from him, from God, okay? This is different from the calamities that befall other societies that have been conquered by people with a different form of worship. When your society got invaded and overwhelmed and decimated, it was an indication that your God was no longer powerful. Okay? And while we don't like this kind of God with a threatening message, at the same time, this kind of message is also what preserved the faith of the people, because they did not attribute their calamity to the power of other gods. They attributed their calamity to the anger of their own God. So their God was not annihilated by another God. Okay? And they always had in mind that whenever this God, their God, wanted to relieve his people, this God could destroy any other God or humiliate any other God. And the story of the Exodus is that that's just what God did. God came after Pharaoh and the gods of Egypt and showed that they were worthless in the presence of their God. Not that they didn't exist, it's just that they were worthless in the presence of the God of the people of Israel. Okay, we haven't wiped out other gods yet. Okay, we've just put them in their place. All right.
Dennis, you know, we what you're talking about, we watch a lot of Netflix. We'll pick one.
Uh-huh.
You know, we don't know what it's about, and this, that, the other. So here we go. And the language is just, you know, unbelievable. So, and then invariably there's a story of murder or whatever. And out of the blue has nothing to do with the story. There's going to be a homosexual,
Yep.
sexual
They just throw it in.
encounter.
Yeah.
And so, you know, let's say, back out, turn it off, let's find something else. You know. But that's what we,
Yes.
grandchildren, who, we're by ourselves, but nevertheless, you know what I'm
These things are
saying.
interjected.
And that's
these
just
things- yes.
Netflix, there's Amazon, there's all
Right.
these other.
It's interjected so that people think that it's a normal course of action. Okay? And that it's more prevalent in the society than it actually is. So yeah, that's how it works. It's kind of you know, in advertising they called it a subliminal message, where you know you have a movie going on and all of a sudden somebody's drinking a Pepsi. Well, you know the Pepsi helped sponsor that film. Okay. I know the tobacco industry was big on promoting smoking in movies. Everybody was smoking in movies back in the 30s and 40s. And it was just the most natural thing in the world. And it wasn't really good for us that much, you know. There's a lot of stuff that isn't that much good for us, and yet it's there. But you'll see, you know, drug abuse, or you'll see casual sex, you'll see deviant sex, you'll see all kinds of stuff just thrown in so that it becomes normative in society and nobody challenges it. I thought, you know, I was watching the opening exercises for the Paris Olympics and I was horrified at what they were just throwing in. I mean, the French have always been a little, you know, but. But
So getting
man,
back to the gods,
yeah,
why is it that, we'll just take Egypt,
yeah,
you know, their God, and they acknowledge the Jews' God.
yes,
So why don't they start worshiping the gods that are more powerful? I mean, it never seems to happen, you know, so well, their God has done this for them, and yet I always found it interesting that, I mean, if your God was much more powerful than my God, I want to be on your God's side. I want to be taught your God.
True that.
But they don't seem to ever do that.
No, and this is really, there are a couple of dynamics involved with this. One of them was that the Israelites did not overthrow the Egyptian society. They did not commit genocide against the Egyptians. They acknowledged the presence of Egyptian gods. Okay? So the Egyptians were not invaded or overthrown. Another reason why they didn't just capitulate over was that their religion and their government were closely tied together. So if they were to overthrow the gods, they would also overthrow the government. And the government ain't going to let you overthrow the gods. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Okay. The other was that the Israelites are not interested in anybody joining in with them. They are the chosen people. Let's make this, just you and me, Lord. And there are a lot of Christians who are like that today. Just you and me, Lord. We're the only ones making it to heaven. I don't know what happened to the rest of these Protestant denominations, but they're going to hell. And I was raised with that. And it was crazy. It was crazy. I am not Roman Catholic, but one of the things that I appreciate about Methodism that Roman Catholicism doesn't go with is that I look at Roman Catholics and I say they are Christians. Mm-hmm. Roman Catholics would dispute that when it comes to Methodists.
Not all.
Not all of them, no. But the church does not recognize Methodism, does not recognize baptism in Methodism, does not recognize marriages necessarily. We are not invited to the Eucharist in Catholic churches. We are infidels. And we Methodists, sloppy as we are, we invite Catholics to not our Mass, but to our Eucharist all the time. We have no problem with it. We consider their baptism to be a Christian baptism. We recognize their sacraments. And, it's not we don't recognize their sacraments in the same context that they do, but we recognize that they are Christian. Mm-hmm. And so we don't have a problem with it. But there is still, within Christendom, the divisions have been severe and historic. And we just don't seem to get along, But these people had no issue about trying to get along with anybody else. They did not want anybody else in the clique. So, when they left with their God, and Egypt was happy to see them go.
So that didn't change until Jesus, right?
Essentially, yes. There were provisions for people to come into Judaism. Judaism shared its law with resident aliens, but they didn't advocate anybody converting to Judaism. Maybe to Judaic ways, but they were not really inviting the Gentile community to convert to Judaism. They were happy for them to be resident aliens. If they had green cards, they were okay.
I was going to try to watch the news the other day, but every channel.
Everything was about the Pope.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what little bit I did see, I mean, the Pope, these people, like, it's God.
Actually, very close. You have to understand that within Roman Catholicism, the clergy has, in some respects, divine prerogatives. They have the prerogative to offer you the Eucharist or not. They have the prerogative to forgive your sins on behalf of God or not. The clergy in the Roman Catholic Church has assumed a lot of divine prerogatives that I don't have and don't want. Okay, I got my own problems, and I think within Roman Catholicism, some of them have their own problems too. At least that's been evident. And I'm not sure that they've worked that out quite well yet. I think that the story has not come to fruition yet about what the Roman Catholic Church was doing with undocumented children and unaccompanied children in this country. But I think it's horrendous that they have simply sent them out into bondage. And somewhere along the line, I think that's going to come back and bite them. I just hope that I haven't seen where the United Methodist Church has engaged in that, but I certainly hope that we have not, because it's a crime what we've done with undocumented children that have come into this country. Absolute crime. And I think that they are entitled to redress. I really do. And there's a lot of them. A lot of them. So, when Moses had finished writing down in the book the words of this law to the very end, Moses commanded the Levites who carried the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, saying, take this book of the law and put it beside the Ark of the Covenant. It wasn't in the Ark. The Ten Commandments, that stone was in the Ark, but not this, the written law. Let it remain there as a witness against you, for I know well how rebellious and stubborn you are. If already you have been so rebellious toward the Lord while I am still alive among you, how much more after my death? Assemble to me all the elders of your tribes and your officials, so that I may recite these words in their hearing, and call heaven and earth to witness against them, for I know that after my death you will surely act corruptly. Turning aside from the way that I have commanded you, in time to come trouble will befall you, because you will do what is evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger through the works of your hands. Then Moses recited the words of this song to the very end in the hearing of those who assembled, of the whole assembly of Israel. Okay, chapter 32. I'm not going to start reading that. This is the worst song that's ever been written. It's horrible, absolutely horrible. And it's, if you're trying, if I'm going to lead an invasion, up against other armies and nations and things, I'm not going to sing this song. Because this song is terrible. It's terrible. And it portends that these people are feckless, and they have no loyalty to God, that they've lost all the lessons of their history, that God doesn't need them to do what he wants to do, and basically they're all going to perish because they're going to do horrible things when they get to the promised land. Okay?
Do you think this was written, like this part here?
Yeah.
It very easily could have been written after the fact.
Oh, absolutely. This is in retro. This is a Moses song in retrospect. Okay. This whole 31 and 32 are all retrospective, pretty much. I mean, there is a tradition of Joshua taking over after Moses that you see in other parts of the Pentateuch, but all the invectives against the people that you see are additions, and probably put in during Josiah's reform, because everything that you see in this lousy song is the motivation for Josiah to reform the society. Okay, this is what you did wrong, and basically, and because Moses is a prophet, he's saying this is what you're going to do, and sure enough, Shazam, wouldn't you know, they did just that, and then they got whacked. And it's just, anyway, everything that you see, a lot of the things that you see in Deuteronomy are apparently addendums that were put in to justify Josiah's reform. And it's kind of interesting because, I'm going through the commentaries and stuff, I don't see the reference. I don't see where they say that this is a retrospective kind of thing. But surely this is not a way to inspire people to invade the promised land. I mean, they're better off in the wilderness and dependent on God the whole time than they are in going into the promised land. The promised land is hell, and it's a caution to us going to heaven that we better not act this way when we get there. Okay, because things are going to be too easy for us in heaven. They're going to be too easy. We might end up like Satan, rebelling against God in heaven. I mean, it happened in heaven. So, who knows? We might not be immune to that sort of thing. I would hope not. But I don't want to hear the Song of Moses up there. Okay. I think that heaven is full of surprises. One that I hope is not is that it's a timeshare. So, anyway, thank you for being here, and we'll pick it up with this terrible song that doesn't even rhyme or have any rhythm to it or any. I mean, it's just he's a lousy songwriter. I got to tell you that, and this is not it's not going to be on the top 10 list. I can assure you. God bless you. See you next week.
Thank you, Dennis.